Yo, 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 what is good, my fellow wrestling fans across the world? Welcome to a brand new week and welcome to a brand new edition of what I like to call the Clash of Champions, where we dive headfirst into all the storylines, personalities, controversies, and everything in between that center around this world we know and love as professional wrestling. I am your host, the vegan you believe in, Konscious Kurt, aka Kurt GPT, the moral conscience of America, in the flesh as always. And guys, I gotta tell you, I am exhausted. I am out of it. I had a very long ass weekend celebrating my 40th birthday in Miami for Ultra Music Festival. And while I am exhausted and tired, it was damn worth it. That was one of the best birthday weekends, one of the best birthday celebrations I have had in a very long time. It was the first time I actually did something for my birthday since 2017, and it was worth the wait. I usually went to WrestleMania every year for my birthday years ago, although I stopped going after 2017. But this year, since it was my 40th birthday, I figured that doing something special like going to Ultra Music Festival, which I had never done before, was something worth doing and worth doing to celebrate for this big occasion. And I have to say, I can't wait to go back next year. There's just nothing like a music festival playing EDM music with people coming from all over the world, the best DJs, the best stages, the best sets. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. One that I'll never forget as long as I live. And it's just to the point where I kind of wish I were back there right now. But life goes on, and I have this show to put on for you guys. So we're going to do it and get the damn thing done. And speaking of Miami, today is going to be a very special episode of our podcast because it's going to be our monthly edition of Wrestling Review Rewind. And I'm going to take you guys back to April of 2012 as we revisit WrestleMania 28. And that place also took place in the city of Miami, and WrestleMania is also very special to me because that is the very first WrestleMania I ever attended in person. So we're going to go back and revisit that show a little bit later. And I'm going to give you my thoughts, especially from being there live and everything that went down that night. But first, let's get into the current world of professional wrestling. As this past Monday, it was revealed that WrestleMania in 2 weeks in Vegas will have a very special host. And that very special host for this year's WrestleMania will be the recently retired John Cena. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Even though John Cena just retired in December and said he wasn't coming back, he wasn't finished, he is going to come back this year to be the host of WrestleMania. And obviously, they're doing this to boost ticket sales because ticket sales have been very disappointing this year compared to last year. And I guess John Cena had some little extra time and maybe he's a little homesick. So he's coming back to host this year's WrestleMania, and I personally don't have a problem with it. It's fine. It'll be good to see John Cena. He's not wrestling in a match, so it's all good. It looked like he wasn't going to maybe go into the Hall of Fame this year, but that did not happen, so he's going to host WrestleMania this year. And hey, it's cool. It'll add a little extra little something to the show. I don't know if he'll maybe FU somebody or get physical at all, but it'll be cool to at least see John Cena again for the first time since his retirement. And this past Monday, we did have Monday Night Raw taking place from my neck of the woods of New York City at Madison Square Garden. Obviously, I was not able to go to the show because I was still in Florida on my trip. But yes, Raw was from Madison Square Garden this past Monday, and it opened with the WWE champion, surprisingly, Cody Rhodes, who is set to face Randy Orton at WrestleMania in 2 weeks for the championship. And as Cody was getting into his promo, he was interrupted by none other than Stephanie McMahon, who will be going into the Hall of Fame also as a part of WrestleMania weekend. So she came out to talk to Cody, talking about how he needs to be a different version of himself to beat Randy Orton, and how he can't be this nice version of himself, and how he has to start thinking more like Randy Orton to defeat him. And she said that his father always understood that he would have to be that way to win matches, but from what she could see, Cody is not his father. And then Cody responded to this saying that, yeah, you're right. I'm not my father. That is true. But with all due respect, Stephanie, you're not your father either. And the crowd started oohing and ahhing and going all crazy when Cody said this line. And in classic Stephanie McMahon's fashion, what she did in response to this is she slapped Cody's ass right in the face. And I've heard from multiple people who have taken that Stephanie McMahon slap over the years that slap in the face that she does is no fucking joke. Even Ronda Rousey said herself that she got a concussion and got very dizzy from the one time Stephanie McMahon slapped her in the face. So I'm sure Cody did not feel any better, but Cody was not taking this shit lying down. So he grabbed Stephanie as she was about to leave, got in her face, and then said, "I just have two words for you." And those two words he said were "thank you." And then Cody left, and the crowd actually booed after he said this. And a lot of people have mixed feelings about this segment. A lot of people feel it wasn't necessary. People think that Cody got emasculated, kind of like what Stephanie McMahon used to do back when she was a part of the Authority storyline. But I mean, it was fine for what it was. I get why they brought Stephanie in because of her history with Randy Orton dating back to 2009 and all those segments they were doing together and that build for WrestleMania 25. So I get why they brought Stephanie out here for this, and maybe she didn't need to smack Cody, but it is what it is. It happened. I don't know if we're going to see her again doing the build for WrestleMania this year, but whatever. It was a segment. It was what it was. And then also on Raw, we had a New York City street fight for the Tag Team Championship, pitting the Usos against Logan Paul and Austin Theory. And there wasn't really much to this match, to be honest with you, for a New York City street fight. The match itself was just okay, but what stood out most about this match was IShowSpeed and LA Knight being at ringside. So LA Knight was at ringside doing commentary. IShowSpeed was sitting in the front row. And as he was sitting in the front row, Logan Paul got a pair of brass knuckles from his mother, who was also sitting next to him. And then LA Knight tried to stop Logan Paul, and as he's beating up Logan Paul pulls in IShowSpeed over the railing into the ringside area, and then Logan Paul fights off or gets fought off by LA Knight, and then LA Knight tries to go up to IShowSpeed as he's putting the brass knuckles on his hand, and IShowSpeed, not knowing who it is, decks LA Knight with the brass knuckles. And then Logan Paul grabs them, and as Jimmy Uso tries to hit Logan Paul with a suicide dive, Paul hits him with the brass knuckles, and then Jey Uso jumps off the apron onto Paul. But as this is happening, Austin Theory puts one hand on the Jimmy Uso for the 1, the 2, the 3, and Logan Paul and Austin Theory are your new World Tag Team Champions. And in the aisleway afterwards, they're celebrating with IShowSpeed. IShowSpeed's acting like he didn't mean to do what he did, but yet he's still celebrating with the new champions. So it's just all a whole thing. And obviously, from the way it's looking now, it is clear that this is all setting up a potential 6-man tag team match for WrestleMania. And those ideas and feelings were kind of confirmed with a live stream that IShowSpeed was doing just yesterday, where in the middle of his live stream, LA Knight came out to confront him. IShowSpeed was acting all scared, all shook, but LA Knight was having none of it. No matter how much IShowSpeed tried to beg, LA Knight was not having it, so he proceeded to take IShowSpeed and throw him through his damn camera. That's right. He threw him through the damn camera, left his ass laying, and yeah, it's looking like it's going to be the Usos and Knight against Paul, Theory, and IShowSpeed in a 6-man tag at WrestleMania. It is what it is. It's fine. I kind of saw this title change coming. Obviously, even though the Usos were the champions for the last few months, WWE still doesn't really treat those tag team titles as a priority. So honestly, who really cares? And in other action on Raw, we did have Liv Morgan come out for a promo about Stephanie Vaquer, and she went on to say how Stephanie Vaquer isn't on her level. Stephanie Vaquer is a paper champion, etc. And she even went to go on to insult Stephanie Vaquer's mother, as she called her mother trash in Spanish. I had to go and look that up a little afterwards, but that's basically what she said in Spanish. And then she called Vaquer out to the ring. And then Vaquer came out. The two of them got into a huge brawl that Vaquer eventually got the better of, and she grabbed the chair. But as she grabbed the chair and Liv Morgan was acting like she was begging her off, a returning Roxanne Perez came and attacked Stephanie Vaquer from behind, and her and Liv double teamed Vaquer, and then Liv proceeded to lay out Stephanie Vaquer with the Oblivion onto a chair, and it looks like Roxanne Perez is back with the Judgment Day, and she will be possibly in Liv Morgan's corner for the match at WrestleMania. It's good to see Roxanne Perez back. She had an operation on her back. She was injured and out for the last few weeks, but it's glad to see her back, and we'll see what factor she plays in that match at WrestleMania. But yeah, this was a good segment. I have to say the Vaquer and Liv feud has gotten a lot better over the last few weeks, especially with that brawl they had backstage last week that was really solid. And then what happened here, this build is slowly getting better, and it's getting better right at the right time, as WrestleMania is only 2.5 weeks away. So we had that happen. We also had a bigger confrontation between Femi and Brock Lesnar, where Lesnar came out in his ring gear, dressed to fight, dressed to fuck people up on sight. And then he actually grabbed the mic from Paul Heyman as Paul Heyman was talking and called Oba out to the ring. And then Oba came out, but Adam Pearce and all the security geeks came out to try to get in between them. But Femi pushed them all out of the way, got them all out of the way. But as he got into the ring to confront Brock, Triple H, of all people, got into the ring to get in between them. And he said, not until WrestleMania, we're not going to do this right here. And he even yelled at Paul Heyman to get Brock Lesnar out of the ring until he eventually did. So Brock ends up leaving, but before he leaves, he lays out one of the security guards with an F5. So yeah, they basically didn't have any real physicality between them here like I thought they would. I thought maybe Brock would have gotten the better of Oba this time since Oba got the better of him the last two times, but that did not happen here. It looks like they're really taking their time with this, and they could even do a stipulation where there's no physical contact allowed between the two of them between now and Mania. I could see them definitely doing that. Or Brock could maybe get the better of him next week like I thought he would do here. But we'll see what happens with that. This is another good segment between these two. This feud only started 2 weeks ago, and it's still honestly one of the best builds for WrestleMania so far. And yeah, there's not enough good things I could say about this and how much I am looking forward to this match. And I know many of you feel the same way too. So in other action on the show, we did have Paul Heyman come out again to call out Seth Rollins, or actually talk shit about Seth Rollins, I should say. And in the middle of all this, Adam Pearce came out to ask Paul Heyman if he looked at his emails, and Heyman was like saying that he doesn't need to look at his emails because there's nothing that your emails can tell me that I don't already know. So then Adam Pearce says, so since you looked at the email, you know that the Boston Police Department that arrested Seth Rollins last week dropped all the charges. And in addition to that, Seth Rollins is cleared to return to the ring. So then right after this, Seth Rollins shows up from behind Heyman, hits him from behind with a chair, and he's about to hit him with a curb stomp onto a chair, but coming out to Paul Heyman's rescue was the ring general, Gunther, who we have not seen on Raw in the last month for some weird reason. He came out to attack Seth Rollins. He trapped him in the sleeper, laid his ass out, put his ass to sleep, and then as he held up Rollins' head, he pointed to the WrestleMania sign, and it was revealed later in the night that it's official. It will be Seth Rollins and Gunther at WrestleMania one-on-one. And it's a good-looking match. It's definitely a great match, but it's obviously been thrown together last minute. You could definitely tell by watching the show. But you can't really hold this one against WWE because their hands were tied with Gunther's original opponent, Rey Mysterio, being injured, and Seth Rollins' original opponent, Braun Breaker, also being injured, and then Bronson Reed also being injured too. So what are you going to do if you're WWE? This is the best they can do in a bad situation, and hey, it's a good, appealing-looking match. There's not much of a story to it, granted, I get that, but it'll still make for a nice addition to the WrestleMania card, and I think it'll definitely be one of the standouts on the show. So yeah, I can't wait for this. Hey, and at least Gunther's getting on the card because it was looking like up until Monday night that John Cena, the man he retired 3 months ago, was going to get on the WrestleMania card, and he wasn't. So it all worked out. Gunther's on the card. He's in a big match with Seth Rollins. And hey, it's not what we all had in mind. It's probably not what anybody else in the company had in mind. But whatever. It's still not a match to complain about. And also, Penta, in the middle of his reign as fighting champion, had another successful title defense against Kofi Kingston. And then after the match, he issued an open challenge for a ladder match for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. And since then, it's been revealed that it's going to be him, Dragon Lee, Javon Evans, JD McDonough, and Rusev. And yo, I love the sound of this. Get some of the top mid-card performers in the company who are great performers in a ladder match for the IC title, or they can steal the show. Yo, I am all for this. They have not done this at WrestleMania in 10 years, since WrestleMania 32. And hey, this is definitely a welcome addition to the card. I look forward to this match. And yeah, all the dudes in this match, they're going to have their working shoes on. It's going to be a lot of them having their first WrestleMania match. You know they're going to be extra motivated. So yeah, there's not enough good things I could say about this either. And yeah, get my popcorn, vegan popcorn that is, ready for this match. And also on Raw, in the main event segment, we had another confrontation between World Heavyweight Champion CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns came out for a promo, but before he can get into his promo, he was interrupted to no surprise by Punk. So Punk comes out, the two of them get into this huge brawl, and then security tries to separate them, but eventually they get past security and they keep brawling some more, and then Punk eventually lays out Reigns with a GTS, but Just like Reigns did to Punk last week where he powerbombed him through the announce table, Punk decided to return the favor here and he powerbombed Reigns through the announce table to end the show. He mocked Reigns with the Roman Reigns chant. He was like talking shit to him. He was even mocking Roman Reigns' fans in the front row with the Superman punch sign and like just doing this stuff and all that. Yeah, Punk was playing no games. So Punk sent a clear message to Roman Reigns in this segment to end the show. So with 2 weeks left until WrestleMania, we will see what happens to further develop this feud, but it's going to be interesting what happens on Monday because Roman Reigns is not advertised to be on the show. And hey, it was fine. Punk got his revenge for what happened the week before, but it started to become clearer week by week that they're starting to run out of ideas a little bit when it comes to their interactions. And it's going to be good for them this coming week on Raw to get away from each other and take a break from each other. So by the time the go home Raw for WrestleMania happens the following week, it could be fresh again and they could do something big to fully sell this big title match for WrestleMania. But we'll see what that big thing is. So yeah, this WrestleMania card is really shaping up well. We're 2.5 weeks left. We do have at least 10 to 12 matches official. We have CM Punk and Roman Reigns for the World Heavyweight title. We have Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton for the WWE title. We have Stephanie Vaquer against Liv Morgan for the Women's World title. Jade Cargill against Rhea Ripley for the WWE Women's title. The 5-way ladder match for the Intercontinental title. We have for the United States title made official as of last Friday on SmackDown, the new champion Sami Zayn against Trick Williams. We also have for the Women's Intercontinental Championship, AJ Lee against Becky Lynch. And also made official on Raw Monday, we have a 4-way for the women's tag team titles pitting the champions Nia Jax and Lash Legend, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, the Bella Twins, as well as Charlotte and Alexa Bliss. And we also have Oba Femi against Brock Lesnar. We have Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio made official as well for WrestleMania. And maybe 1 or 2 other matches still to be determined. But we'll see what happens in the next week or so. But yeah, that's the WrestleMania card so far. I gotta say, it's looking damn good. I know the build for WrestleMania this year has been very hot and cold, and it's been very underwhelming compared to most other years. But with it getting closer and closer to WrestleMania now, I feel like the excitement for me at least is starting to kick in. So yeah, I'm looking forward to WrestleMania still, even if this last year of WWE's product has been a little disappointing. It's still WrestleMania time. It's still one of my favorite times of the year, and I still can't help, even at this stage in my life, to get excited for it. So from one current WrestleMania, which is coming up in 2 weeks, to another, let's take you back in time to 14 years ago, to April of 2012, as I am going to cover today WrestleMania 28. And this was a very special time for me because, funny enough, I was living in South Florida at the time, South Florida being Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And through all the years I had been living there, I had always hoped and prayed that a WrestleMania would come down there. And through all those years when I was a little kid, growing up into my teen years, WrestleMania never came to South Florida. And then eventually I stopped watching wrestling for a few years. I stopped watching wrestling after WrestleMania 22. And then lo and behold, in 2011, around the time I first moved back to Florida, I find out that WrestleMania 28 is going to be coming to Miami at Sun Life Stadium, it was called at the time. It's called Hard Rock Stadium now. It's had 4 or 5 different names throughout my entire life, which I'm not going to dive into right now. But at the time, it was called Sun Life Stadium. So when I heard that news, I was intrigued, admittedly so. But what really got me intrigued and really got me curious as going to WrestleMania goes, was the following Monday on Raw, a certain somebody returned to WWE after a 7-year absence, and that certain somebody was none other than The Rock. Miami's finest, The Rock came back after being gone for 7 years, making movies, becoming a movie star, and once he came back, he entered a feud with WWE's current top star at the time, John Cena. And they started doing a whole bunch of back and forth segments against each other where they would be making fun of each other, where John Cena did a rap for the first time in years dissing The Rock, and The Rock mocked John Cena's like outfits, like all his different color outfits, talking about how he looks like a big bowl of Fruity Pebbles. And then he had like a mini John Cena that he was making fun of once, and he like talked about how he was crying, and he was like making fun of him for crying, and then he gave him a box of Fruity Pebbles to make him feel better. Yo, they were really going off on each other, and you could kind of tell that there was probably some real tension between the two. Because back in 2008, John Cena did do an interview where he basically called out The Rock for kind of staying away from WWE and not really acknowledging it, and kind of like, you know, just being more about his acting and like kind of forgetting about the fact that he came from wrestling. And then The Rock obviously took exception to that. So when he did come back, he did take those shots at John Cena. And that's kind of how things spiraled from there. And then at WrestleMania 27 in 2011, John Cena was in the main event for the championship against The Miz. And The Rock was the host of the show. And during that match, The Rock interfered and screwed John Cena by hitting him with the rock bottom, costing him the title. And the following night on Raw, The Rock made the challenge for him and John Cena to face each other at WrestleMania 28, which would be a whole year later, and it was made official on that night. It was the very first time that the main event of WrestleMania was made official 1 year in advance. And when I heard the news that it was going to be The Rock and John Cena as the main event of WrestleMania in my home place of Miami, Florida, and I had never been to a WrestleMania before, even though I wasn't really watching wrestling by this point, I was really starting to feel like maybe I should go to this event. Maybe I should go. And as the months went on, I kind of forgot about it. I kind of just got into other things. I was forgetting about it. But then right around the time tickets started to go on sale, I watched that History of WrestleMania documentary that WWE put out around that time. I watched it on Netflix. And then from watching that documentary, I said, you know what? I'm going to go. Even if I just go for that one night and never watch wrestling again after that, I never got to go to a WrestleMania, and this is my perfect chance to go to one, so I'm going to do it. So I bought my ticket for WrestleMania the day they went on sale that November, and funny enough, for a seat in the middle 100 section, it only cost me $150. Compared to the $400, $500 or whatever you'll pay now, yeah, what I paid in 2012 for that ticket was nothing compared to what you'll have to pay now. So I never thought I would say this, but in many ways, I missed that 2012 period. In many ways, I kind of wish I could go back to it for at least maybe one day. But that's another story for another time. So around this time, I slowly started watching the product again. I saw that The Rock came back for Survivor Series to do the tag team match with John Cena. And then as it got closer to WrestleMania, I saw The Undertaker and Triple H were back on TV. They were building for their match for WrestleMania, the Hell in a Cell, with Shawn as the referee. And this was also around the time CM Punk did the pipe bomb, and he was really starting to become popular, and he really blew up around this time. He was the champion, but they kind of were pushing him to the side in favor of, people like John Cena being one example. But he was still popular nonetheless. He was still in a marquee match, that being one with Chris Jericho. So yeah, not just for the main event, I was also amped and excited for the other matches on the show. So yeah, I was looking forward to the show for the 4 or 5 months before it actually happened. I was really hyped for it, amped for it, because WrestleMania is always around the time of my birthday. My birthday was actually the weekend of this WrestleMania, that being March 31st. So yeah, this was definitely a special time for me. This was my basically reintroduction of wrestling after not watching wrestling for 5-6 years by that point. So yeah, I was looking forward to WrestleMania, and also not just WrestleMania. There was a lot of other great things going on in the world at the time. I was really into the NBA around this time. The NBA just came off of their lockout season that happened a couple months before. And even though I did not like this team at the time, I had to give credit where it was due at this point. The top team in the NBA around this period was the Miami Heat. And funny, even though I was living in South Florida at the time, I did not like that Heat team at all. That team with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, yeah, they were a good team. I give them credit, but yeah, I was not a fan of theirs. I was a Knicks fan, even though it was painful at this time, and also a Lakers fan, also painful at this time. But yeah, that Miami Heat team, admittedly, yeah, they were dominating during this time. That 2012 season when LeBron was MVP and they went on to win the title, beating the Oklahoma City Thunder, yeah, I had to give them credit where it was due, because they had a very hard playoff run that year when Chris Bosh got injured in the second round, and they had to go through the Pacers, and they had a very hard 7-game series against the Celtics, and they had to go through the Thunder. So yeah, I had to give that Heat team credit. As much as I might not have liked them, they were definitely the dominant team in the NBA, and they proved it with that playoff run they went on. And also around this time, the New York Giants won the Super Bowl once again by defeating the New England Patriots once again, just like they did in 2008. So history repeated itself in this Super Bowl also. And one thing I really loved about this time frame was the music that was out during this time. And while many of us are soured about this artist over the last few years, the album that was number one around this time of WrestleMania 28 was Nicki Minaj's Pink Friday Reloaded. And the main hit from that album that was hot around this time was Starships. I know that song hasn't aged well since then, but during that time, admittedly so, it was a massive hit. And yeah, Nicki Minaj, when she first came out in 2010, for those first few years, she was everywhere. She was everywhere on every song with Lil Wayne, with Drake, with Rick Ross, with Rihanna, you name it. She was on every single motherfucking song. With those crazy wigs, those crazy ass verses, those crazy ass voices she would do. Look, say what you want about her as a person, say what you want about her antics or political affiliations and all that good stuff. But as an artist, as one of the few female rappers that we had during that time who opened the door for a lot of the female rappers we have now, she was second to none. And as much as I don't like her anymore either, for a lot of reasons, she's still on my Mount Rushmore of female rappers. And I have to give credit where it's due, even if I do not like the person personally. But also, that Call Me Maybe song was very hot around this time. Not my cup of tea, but people seem to like it a lot. Definitely not a song I jam to regularly or really at all, but people still seem to like it, so that's their prerogative. And also, EDM was really getting hot around this time. That EDM run in the 2010s, yeah, it was really starting to spice up around this time with Avicii, with also Calvin Harris, David Guetta, all those dudes. Yeah, it was really starting to pop off during this time. And yeah, just like now, really giving me flashbacks of being at Ultra last week. I really wish I were back there now, but I still got to wait another year till the next Ultra. So yeah, that music was really hot around this time. But the number one song that was blasting on the charts and blasting all over the radios at the time of WrestleMania 28, ironically enough, was the same song they played between The Rock and John Cena video package. And that song is We Are Young. Tonight, we are young, so we'll set this world on fire, breathe a little higher to the sun. I know I'm not the best singer, but fuck it, who cares? Yeah, that song was white hot during that time frame, and yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. That's like a ultimate song to get drunk to. That's one thing I will say. That's like an ultimate song to get drunk to at the bar. No bullshit. So yeah, that song was white hot during that time. And also what was really hot during this time was some of the movies that were out. And the number one movie during this time frame was The Hunger Games, starring Jennifer Lawrence. That movie was the number one movie throughout all of April. Also, other hot movies that were out during this time, which I actually saw the weekend after this WrestleMania, 21 Jump Street. 21 Jump Street with Jonah Hill and also Channing Tatum. That movie was mad funny. I didn't really like the sequel as much, but the original one that came out during this time frame was mad funny, mad dope. Reminded me of my time in high school. And yeah, it was a funny ass movie. Also, Think Like a Man. Think Like a Man was also a classic from that year. American Reunion, etc. Yeah, this is the time when going to the movies was still dope. Even 2012 time frame, I still went to the movies regularly. And damn, I missed that shit. So yeah, those are just some of the things that were out during that time. As far as television shows, the number one television show was NCIS. I'm not sure what version because they had like multiple different versions of that, CSI and Law and Order and all those shows, but NCIS was the number one show. Also The Voice, American Idol, all those damn reality shows, they were also hot. But another show that was really popping during this time, that's actually one of my favorite shows to still watch to this very day, Modern Family. Modern Family at the time was in its third season. It was probably at its peak popularity-wise, even though the show lasted for over a decade. I feel like it definitely peaked in the earlier seasons, and this was, I would say, around the time it was at its most popular was, 2012. So yeah, Modern Family was dope. And I didn't really watch those other shows, but they were still popular. People still were into them. Another show I really liked during this time that was also hot, How I Met Your Mother. How I Met Your Mother was definitely one of the better shows that I got into during this time. And yeah, it was definitely at its peak during this time frame also. And yeah, it was definitely a lot of good shit going on in that 2012 period. Honestly, looking back at it now, I didn't really appreciate it enough. Yeah, 2012, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, living in South Florida during that time, I was definitely running wild, going out a lot. Yeah, wilding out, having a good time. And yeah, looking back at it now, yeah, definitely a time frame that I miss. But let's not dive too much into the pop culture stuff. Let's dive more into the wrestling aspect of the show today, as we are going to cover WrestleMania 28, which happened on April 1st of 2012 from Sun Life Stadium in Miami, Florida. And yes, this is the very first WrestleMania I ever attended live, and this is the very first wrestling event that I attended since 2002's Armageddon. Yeah, I had been out of the wrestling loop, like I said before, for years by this point. The last WrestleMania I watched live was WrestleMania 22. Then I pretty much stopped watching wrestling regularly after that. But Just something about The Rock coming back and WrestleMania being in Miami drew me back, and here I was going to my first WrestleMania. And yeah, I cannot describe in words how incredible that experience was. I know I went to my first Ultra last week in Miami, and funny enough, I went to my very first WrestleMania in Miami too. And yeah, definitely an experience that blew me away from getting to the stadium, being surrounded by all those fans, like not being at a going to my a wrestling show, I should say, for the first time in a decade. Yeah, it was definitely overwhelming. And just like walking into that stadium and seeing the set and like just being there in person, it was like, yo, I finally did it. I'm finally at a WrestleMania. Yeah, it was a dream come true. As weird as it sounds, and as corny as it may sound, like just as a fan, if you've never been to a WrestleMania before, and when you finally go to one for the first time and you finally like see it right in front of your face, yeah, there's just nothing like that feeling on earth. And for all of you going to WrestleMania for the very first time this year, I hope you experience that exact same feeling, because I will promise you this: it is a feeling you'll never forget, and that is going to be a night and a weekend that you will never forget too. So in the opening match we had for the World Heavyweight Championship, Daniel Bryan defending his championship with AJ Lee in his corner against the winner of the 2012 Royal Rumble, Sheamus. And this is one thing that definitely changed about the WrestleManias from when I was watching before. It was weird seeing the winner of the Royal Rumble in the opening match of WrestleMania. Yeah, that was strange. I'm glad they don't do that anymore. And considering how this match turned out, I'm really glad they don't do this anymore, because the match begins, Daniel Bryan comes out, he gives AJ Lee a kiss on the apron before the match starts, and right when he turns around, Sheamus hits him with the bro kick and then pins him and wins the championship. And I gotta say, being in that stadium live for this, that crowd was pissed off. And in all honesty, they had every right to be pissed off, because this is one of the championship matches, one of the marquee matches at WrestleMania with the Royal Rumble winner, and you do it in 18 seconds? 18 fucking seconds? Kind of bullshit is that, son? So yeah, I will say this was a bad way to start the show. This was dog shit. This was garbage. I don't know who fucking brilliant idea it was, but whoever's brilliant idea it was, they should be smacked in the face for it. But I will say this: even though it was a stupid idea, even though it was ridiculous, it ended up making Daniel Bryan an even bigger star. Because people were so pissed off that he was treated this way, and so pissed off that he was relegated to an 18-second match at WrestleMania in the opening match, even though he was a champion, that the crowd really got behind him. Even though he was a heel at the time and they were supposed to hate him, they were doing that yes chant nonstop. I'm telling you, being in that stadium, that was the main chant they were doing the entire night. Hell, even when they were letting us in the stadium before they opened the doors, everyone was chanting, yes, 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 yes. Yeah, that chant was no joke, son. That dude was white hot. And the fact that they pulled this bullshit on him made him even more white hot. And this will ultimately lead to the yes movement blowing up and becoming a big deal. And then him ultimately winning the championship in the main event of WrestleMania 2 years later. But yeah, it was cool to really be there for the, early rumblings of the yes movement, the early rumblings of Daniel Bryan really blowing up. Yeah, I didn't really know much about him at the time, but just seeing him at this point and then seeing where he would, progress to over the years after this. Yeah, it was really cool to be a part of that early stage of it. And yeah, he was definitely somebody I became a huge fan of as time went on. But this match did suck. This was bullshit. It got Sheamus' title reign off to a bad start. As great as Sheamus is in the ring, admittedly so, yeah, this did not do him any favors at all. But it was what it was. Sheamus wins the World Heavyweight title, and on to the second match. We had Randy Orton going one-on-one with Kane, who had recently put his mask back on. And I gotta say, it is very, very weird seeing Kane in the daylight. I said the same thing about Undertaker at WrestleMania 31, but looking back at it now, 3 years earlier to WrestleMania 28, watching Kane come out to the daylight, yeah, that should never happen again. Kane's matches need to go on later if they're going to be doing these outside shows. Yeah. Not a good look to have him out in daylight, but any event match happens. It's pretty solid. It's pretty competitive. It's crowd's kind of dead for the early parts of it, but then it starts to pick up in the latter part of it. And then ultimately Kane hits Randy Orton with a chokeslam from the top rope to get the win. And yeah, Kane defeats Randy Orton. The feud would actually go on to continue into the next month. They would have an even much better match, a Falls Count Anywhere match at Extreme Rules the next month with Paul Bearer involved. But here Kane picked up the win, and yeah, that was that. And then in our next match for the Intercontinental Championship, we had the champion Cody Rhodes I think you guys have heard of him. I think he went on to do big things several years later. He was defending his Intercontinental Championship here against The Big Show. And the main consensus of the storyline for this match was that Cody Rhodes was making fun of Big Show for the fact that he had a bad WrestleMania record, and every time he would wrestle at WrestleMania, he would get embarrassed or something foolish would happen to him, like, you know, the Akibono match that he had at WrestleMania 21, that sumo match, and then getting knocked out by Mayweather at WrestleMania 24, and then being the first one eliminated from the four-way at WrestleMania 2000, and then that hardcore match with Kane and Raven. Yeah, Big Show did get embarrassed and humiliated a lot at WrestleMania, admittedly so. So yeah, that was the basis of this storyline. And the match happens. It goes on for a few minutes, and then Cody Rhodes tried to do a disaster kick from the top rope, but then Big Show hits him with a low blow, and then Big Show proceeds to knock him out with the right hand, the right hand he would do back then, and the WSD, I believe it was called, and that was all she wrote. Big Show picks up the win, wins his first Intercontinental Championship, and finally gets to have his WrestleMania moment. Very nice, very nice. Obviously, Big Show's title reign would not last long. It would go all of 1 month as he would lose it back to Cody Rhodes the next month at Extreme Rules in the most ridiculous way possible as he put his foot through a table in a table match, and that's how the match ended. But that's neither here nor there. Big Show won the title here. And yeah, it was nice for him to finally get like a crowning WrestleMania moment because, yeah, looking back at it now, he did not have very many of them. But this is one of the few ones that he did have. And then our next match, we had a celebrity tag team match here where we had Maria Kanellis from the show Extra teaming up with Kelly Kelly to take on Divas champion Beth Phoenix and also Eve Torres. This match wasn't really much of a match. It went just a few minutes, but I do give Maria Kanellis credit for wrestling this match with injured ribs. She was injured going into this match, and ultimately I believe she threw Eve Torres into Beth Phoenix, who fell off the apron, and then she rolled up Eve Torres for the pin, and Maria Kanellis and Kelly Kelly pick up the win. And yeah, that was that. And it's so weird. For this match, they didn't show a promo package for what the feud was going on between the four women involved. It was just a promo package about all the WWE divas at the time. And yeah, looking back at this WrestleMania, the WWE women have come a long, very, very long way since then. Because yeah, at this WrestleMania, they get one match, a random tag team match, where for the promo for the match, they do a promo about all the women and not even the women involved. And yeah, it was weird, but you know, it was what it was. They've come a long way since then. And on to one of the marquee matches. Billed as an end of an era match taking place inside of Hell in a Cell, we had The Undertaker, who by this point was 19-0 against all of his opponents at WrestleMania, going one-on-one with the man who he defeated at WrestleMania the year before, Triple H. And for the icing on the cake, the man who The Undertaker retired at WrestleMania 2 years earlier, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, and Triple H's best friend, Shawn Michaels, would be the guest referee. And I gotta say, this is one of the matches I was looking forward to the most going into this show because I had never seen a WrestleMania live in person. I'd never seen a Hell in a Cell match live in person. But as much as I love The Undertaker, deep down, I was rooting for him to lose because I wanted to say that I was in the building the night The Undertaker streak came to an end. So yeah, Triple H has an incredible entrance. Undertaker has an even more incredible entrance. And then when The Undertaker takes his hoodie off, you see that he shaved his head. He cut his hair before, back in 2001, he cut it pretty short, but then this time, he pretty much just had nothing but a mohawk, which is a little weird to see, but yes, it was a new Undertaker, and then him and Triple H have the stare down, and as they're having the stare down, the cell comes from the top of the stadium to surround them, and then the match begins. They brawl for the first few minutes, they start exchanging shots, exchanging blows, moves, etc. As an Undertaker does that leg drop from the apron that he always does during his matches. And then there's one point Triple H does a spine buster to Undertaker on the steps, which is gnarly as hell. And then Triple H takes a chair and just starts beating the hell out of the Undertaker with it for a few minutes, to the point where Shawn Michaels has to get on his case and tell him to stop, tell him to cut it out, stop them. I'm going to stop the match if you keep doing this. And then Triple H just won't stop. He continues the punishment, but then the chair is not enough for him. And then he eventually pulls out a sledgehammer. And it comes to the point where Shawn Michaels has to take the sledgehammer away from Triple H and says, stop it, you're doing too much. I'm going to call the match off. I'm going to call it off. And Triple H is like, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to do that. Either you win the match or I will. Either you end it or I will. And then Shawn Michaels tries to go to Undertaker and say, I'm going to stop the match. You've taken too much punishment. And Taker tells him, don't stop it. Don't stop it. And I have to say, one of the things that stood out the most about this match was the dialogue between all three of them. You couldn't really hear it being in the stadium, but when you go back and watch it afterwards, yeah, the dialogue is really what adds to this match. So then Shawn Michaels is about to call for the bell. He's checking on the Undertaker, but as he's doing this, the Undertaker puts him in the Hell's Gate, and then he's choking out Shawn, and then Triple H hits Undertaker in the head with a sledgehammer, and then the match goes on. Undertaker actually hits Triple H with a tombstone after he recovers, but then Triple H kicks out, and then Undertaker tries another tombstone, but then Triple H escapes, and then he throws him into Shawn Michaels, who hits him with the sweet chin music, and then Triple H hits Undertaker with a pedigree, and I kid you not, everybody and their mother thought Triple H had the match won here. So Shawn counts for the 1, the 2, and then the Undertaker kicks out. And that frightened look on Shawn Michaels' face after Undertaker kicked out was priceless. And not to mention the reaction from the audience when Undertaker kicked out too, because I'm telling you, in that audience, we could not fucking believe it when Undertaker kicked out. Yeah, it really looked like the streak was over. It really looked like Triple H had him there, but nope, Undertaker lived to continue the match. And Triple H eventually hit him with another pedigree, and Undertaker kicked out of that one again. And then Undertaker fought back, and then this time he had the chair and started beating the hell out of Triple H with it. He was showing no mercy. He was beating Triple H's ass with it. And then he eventually took the sledgehammer as Triple H was trying to get up. And then Triple H, in a last act of defiance, did the suck it sign to the Undertaker, and then Undertaker hit him with the sledgehammer in the face, and then proceeded to hit him with another tombstone to get the 1, the 2, the 3, and the Undertaker goes 20-0 at WrestleMania. And damn, this match was incredible. This match was a war. It was a fight. It was every kind of word you can describe in that sense you could think of for this match. And yeah, it was definitely the match of the night, in my opinion. Yeah, it was this match that really made me happy that I decided to go. That really made me happy that I kind of like became a fan again. And yeah, honestly, this entire night, this match being probably the primest example of them all, made me fall back in love with wrestling again. Yeah. After not watching it for so long, after being away for so long, yeah, it was this show and also this match specifically where I was like, yo, I love this shit. I'll always love this shit. And 14 years later, I still feel the exact same way. So The Undertaker celebrates. It's pyro. It's a huge fireworks display. It's awesome. It's great. And then Undertaker and Shawn Michaels help up Triple H. And the three of them like walk to the front of the entrance, and then the three of them just glance at the crowd one last time, and all three of them share a hug. And yeah, honestly, being there live, that was a beautiful moment. For those three to have that kind of story for those last 4 years where Undertaker beat Shawn in those 2 WrestleMania matches at 25 and 26, retiring him at 26, and then he beats Triple H at 27, and then at this match at 28 with Shawn as the referee, and the three of them all come together and hug at the end. Yeah, it was some cinema shit. Real talk. It was some real cinema shit. And also, it was great to have JR, Jim Ross, come out to do commentary for this match, too. I forgot to mention that a few minutes ago, but Jim Ross did do guest commentary for this match, and it was a great moment on that night, but they really made it seem as if like one of them or all of them were going to retire after this, because they had the whole end of an era tagline of this match, and ironically enough, Undertaker, Triple H, and even Shawn himself will go on to wrestle again. And yeah, it really pissed me off when they did that like match between Undertaker and Triple H again in Australia back in 2018, like 6 years after this. And they built that as the last time ever. And then they did a tag match the next month with Undertaker and Kane against Shawn and Triple H. Yeah, that kind of ruined this entire match here that I'm talking about. But it is what it is. On this night, it was still great. On this night, it was still monumental. And on this night, as a fan being in that audience, it was good shit. So yeah, The Undertaker goes 20-0 at WrestleMania. And in our next match, we have a 12-man tag to decide who's going to run Raw and SmackDown. For Team John Laurinaitis, we have Jack Swagger, Dolph Ziggler, David Otunga, Drew McIntyre, who's really weird seeing back then, like looking the way he did, as well as The Miz and Mark Henry, taking on Team Teddy Long, consisting of the captain Santino Marella, Booker T, Kofi Kingston, R-Truth, Zack Ryder, and the Great Khali. And it's really weird seeing that douchebag piece of shit John Laurinaitis on this show in this Colonel Sanders suit. Yeah, that dude is the biggest disgrace I've ever seen, probably even as much, if not more so, than Vince McMahon. But back then, he was like the evil authority figure on the show, and they did this whole storyline between him and Teddy Long where they would have two teams face each other, and the person whose team won, they would get to be general manager of both shows. So that was the storyline going into this match. The match itself was kind of slow in the first few minutes because obviously they were coming down after that great Undertaker and Triple H match from the one before. But it started to pick up in the last few minutes where R-Truth, Zack Ryder, and Kofi Kingston did like a flip over the top rope onto the opposing team. That was really cool. And then there comes one point where Zack Ryder's about to finish off The Miz, and then Eve Torres, who was Zack Ryder's on-screen girlfriend at the time, gets into the ring to kind of distract him. And then this leads to Miz laying out Zack Ryder with the skull-crushing finale to get the win for Team Laurinaitis. So Team Laurinaitis won, and John Laurinaitis will be the general manager of both Raw and SmackDown for the next few months with the whole people power bullshit he was doing during that time. So yeah, it kind of was predictable in that sense because Laurinaitis was like more of the on-screen authority figure that was getting more TV time at the time, and Teddy Long had already been around as the on-screen figure for like a couple of years by this point. So yeah, I guess I can see why they did it that way. But then after the match, as like Zack Ryder's trying to get himself back up, Eve Torres, to add insult to injury, hits him with a low blow and then walks out of the ring to leave Zack Ryder to crotch his private parts. And yeah, that was basically the icing on the cake on Zack Ryder's burial during that time because he really got himself popular and got himself to be ingratiated with the fans, even though he wasn't getting TV time. The fans were really getting behind him. They were really liking like his whole character and his whole swag that he had going on. But then with WWE at the time, if you get yourself popular despite not being a part of their plans, they don't like that, so they punish you for it. So in this case, they punished him with taking the United States title away from him and then having Eve Torres cheat on him with John Cena, and then Kane push him off of the stage in a wheelchair, and then he loses this match at WrestleMania, and Eve Torres hits him with a low blow. So yeah, you could say what WWE can talk all this shit all they want about how they never do that. They never punish people for, making themselves popular, but actions speak louder than words. But in any event, in our next match for the WWE Championship, we had the champion CM Punk in the middle of his historic 434-day title reign, defending his title against the recently returned Chris Jericho with his bright-ass fucking jacket. So the consensus of this storyline was that Jericho would have won the Elimination Chamber the month before to get the title shot at WrestleMania. And they had this great promo back and forth segment on Raw in the weeks leading up, which was really dope. And then in the weeks leading up, Jericho was talking about how CM Punk's like dad was an alcoholic and his sister had substance abuse problems and how he was going to beat him for the championship. And once he beats him for the title, he's going to force him to break his straight edge lifestyle and force him to start drinking. So yeah, that was the consensus of his whole feud in the weeks leading up to it. And also it was like the debate about who's the best in the world because Punk called himself the best in the world and Jericho called himself the best in the world at what he did. So that kind of like put this whole thing together. And before the match, John Laurinaitis is celebrating with his team after they won, and then he runs into Punk, and then he tells Punk that he wants a wrestling match out there, so if you get yourself disqualified, you lose the championship. So that added a little bit more spice to this whole thing. So we have a match between Jericho and Punk, and then Punk wants to beat the hell out of Jericho, but then the referee keeps reminding him that he'll lose the title if he gets disqualified. And then Jericho keeps taunting him, saying, Punk, how's your father? Punk, how's your sister? So yeah, that keeps going on. And then Jericho at one point hits Punk with a suplex over the top rope onto the floor. That was pretty gnarly. So yeah, this match is pretty competitive. And then there's one point where Punk attempts a Hurricane Rana on the Jericho, but then Jericho reversed it into the walls of Jericho. I have to say, that spot was incredible. Especially being there live, that spot was incredible. So Jericho puts him in the walls of Jericho, but Punk holds on as long as he can, and he's able to escape eventually. And then Punk tries to go for the go to sleep later in the match, but then Jericho reverses that into the walls of Jericho. And I got to be honest, this is where I thought Jericho had him. I seriously thought that Jericho was going to beat him here. It looked really close, but Punk found a way to escape and continue the match. And then Punk eventually got Jericho trapped in the Anaconda Vice and then trapped him in a way where Jericho couldn't hit him with his knees. He like went down on his side so that Jericho could not escape. And ultimately, Jericho tapped out to the Anaconda Vice, and CM Punk retains his championship on the big stage of WrestleMania. I know Punk was upset during this time because he was not in the main event at WrestleMania, despite the fact that he was a champion. And even in the pipe bomb, he said he was pissed off at the fact that The Rock was in the main event of WrestleMania and he wasn't. So I could see where his frustration was in that sense, but realistically so, as great as this match was, and even though Punk was a champion, it just was not a bigger match than The Rock and John Cena. I'm sorry, I get it. I know it's the championship, but it just was not the bigger match. It wasn't. And if they put Punk and Jericho on last at this WrestleMania, it would not have flowed well. It would have been very similar to when they put Chris Jericho and Triple H on last at WrestleMania 18 over The Rock and Hulk Hogan. Yeah, it just would not have flowed well. But still a very good match nonetheless. Punk retains his title. He would go on to hold the title up until the Royal Rumble the next year, where he would drop it to The Rock. And admittedly so, the following year at WrestleMania, yes, he should have definitely main evented. Definitely. No arguments for that at all, but it is what it is. Things happen. But Punk still retained the title here, and on to the main event. What was billed as once in a lifetime, what was signed and made official a year before this WrestleMania even took place. We had The Rock in his first singles match and in his first WrestleMania match since 2004, going one-on-one with a new face of the company, John Cena. And you really knew this match was a big deal, as both of them got very special entrances and very special live performances for their entrances. As MGK performed the song Invincible along with Skylar Grey. And MGK did no favors for John Cena talking shit about The Rock before he came out, saying how tonight you guys came to see something historic, as you came to see one of the biggest egos in wrestling get defeated by one of the biggest underdogs. And yeah, that crowd in Miami was not having it. They were booing MGK's ass out of the building. Rightfully so, because that dude's an asshole from the vibe I've gotten from him. And yeah, John Cena came out to a horde of boos. I literally lost my voice booing him when he came out. And yeah, this is my first time really attending a show with John Cena being the main guy. And damn, he had some fans in the audience, but the majority of that crowd hated his guts. Yeah, they were booing him. They were talking shit to him. They were not feeling John Cena at all. So he comes out to the ring, grand old entrance, and then Flow Rider does a performance for The Rock. He performs the song Good Feeling, which is the theme song to WrestleMania this year, as well as the song Wild Ones. They play a promo package for The Rock before he comes out, and then The Rock makes his grand entrance. Huge reaction. Everybody goes crazy. I've been to shows when The Rock was in his peak, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was very similar to that, if not bigger. Because, yeah, it was a big stadium. It was the first time I ever attended a wrestling show at a stadium. And, yeah, it was electric. Like, this match and the vibe and the atmosphere, this is what the main event of WrestleMania is all about. Two huge stars facing each other for the first time. It's in a big stadium. The electricity's in the air. The crowd's on the edge of their seat. They cannot wait for this match to go down. The Rock and John Cena had their stare down. It's 1 year in the making. It's a big deal after all the shit they've been talking to each other, after all the back and forth, all that craziness going on in the build for this match. It was finally time for them to throw down. So the match begins. John Cena has a test of strength against The Rock where he shoves him down, but then The Rock recovers, hits him with a few arm drags and with a cool pinning combination. And yeah, the crowd was really excited when they saw this. And then the look on John Cena's face was priceless, where he's like, damn, where did that come from? So the match goes on. It's a little slow in certain parts. They do a couple rest holds here and there, but it's still pretty entertaining. And then John Cena does his shoulder tackles and the 5-knuckle shuffle. And then The Rock makes a comeback, and he's about to, punch John Cena several times. And when he punches him the third time, he does the "you can't see me" to him. But as he does this, John Cena hits him with the FU, but The Rock is able to kick out. When The Rock recovers, he hits Cena with a rock bottom that Cena kicks out from. He traps Cena in the sharpshooter, but Cena is eventually able to escape because as much as I love The Rock, he's not Bret Hart when it comes to putting the sharpshooter on people, or even Owen Hart for that matter. But yeah, the match goes on. Cena hits that impressive leg drop from the top rope onto The Rock's back. Actually, people thought he was going to jump from the top of the palm tree in doing that, but nah, that did not happen here. Cena hit that leg drop, but The Rock still kicked out. Yeah, people were on the edge of their seat for this match from start to finish. Being in that audience, yeah, I was chomping at the bit from start to finish. I was really hoping, keeping my fingers crossed, that The Rock would possibly pull it off, even though deep down I thought he probably wouldn't win. So then the match goes on. Cena hits The Rock with another FU, but The Rock still kicks out. And then, of all moves, John Cena attempts the people's elbow onto The Rock. He gets him in the center of the ring. He does this whole thing, and then he runs across the ropes to attempt the people's elbow. But as he's about to hit it, The Rock gets back up, lays Cena out with a rock bottom, and gets the 1, the 2, the 3, and the crowd goes apeshit, myself included. The Rock, surprisingly so, defeats John Cena in the main event of WrestleMania in his hometown. The crowd went crazy. I was hugging people in the audience when the match ended and that happened. And yeah, I could not describe that feeling at the end of that match. Shit. Yeah. No matter how old I get, no matter how many wrestling shows I go to, that feeling at the end of WrestleMania, like I had on that night, is something I will always remember as long as I live. Yeah, it was at that point when The Rock won that match at the end, like I knew, like I'm back. I'm a fan permanently. Like, who am I kidding? I love this shit. I'll always love this shit. And that night and that ending when The Rock won reminded me of why. So yeah, John Cena's like outside of the ring. He has like a very sad, distraught look on his face because obviously after all that time, after all that shit he talked, he still lost. And The Rock And The Rock won. He was celebrating. He was doing this thing. There was fireworks going off. It was a whole crazy celebration. Even after the show went off the air, he spent a few minutes like signing autographs and celebrating with everybody. And yeah, it was a great moment. It was honestly not even just one of the best nights of my life being a wrestling fan, but just one of the best nights of my life, period. I've been to other WrestleManias, and they were better WrestleManias than that one, I will admit, but there was just nothing like going to WrestleMania for my first time. And in that setting, in a place, in a city where I grew up in that stadium, with The Rock coming back, one of my favorites growing up, yeah, there was nothing like that night and nothing like that experience of being there in person. So yeah, The Rock shockingly picked up the win. I seriously thought John Cena was going to win because he's the full-time guy, and The Rock is, I figured, was just coming back for that match. But then when he won that match, I'm like, maybe he's going to stick around. Maybe he's going to stay a little longer. And he kind of did, as the following night on Raw, he said that he was planning on challenging for the WWE Championship at some point, which he would not do until the Royal Rumble the next year. And that year after, John Cena kind of went into like a depression storyline wise. As the following night on Raw, he did call out The Rock to some congratulations, but instead of The Rock coming out to confront him, Brock Lesnar, who had not been in WWE since 2004, made his return and laid out John Cena with an F5. Yeah, so between how great this WrestleMania was, with The Rock winning at the end of the era match, and the Cena, I'm sorry, not Cena, the Punk and Jericho match, so Brock Lesnar returning the next night to lay out John Cena, yeah, I was back. Yeah, no questions asked. I was back to being a fan. There was no part-time shit. There was no only watching it occasionally. I was back to being a fan full-time, and I've been a full-time fan ever since. Although it's been challenging the last year with some of the stuff they've been doing, I'm still a fan full-time regardless. And yeah, that was just such a great experience, such a great weekend. And I know it's not the best WrestleMania per se, but it's definitely one that I hold a special place for. For the fact that I was there and for the moments that happened, yeah, it was definitely a WrestleMania that I'll always have fond memories of. So yeah, even though this match was billed as once a So yeah, even though this match was billed as once in a lifetime and you thought it was only going to happen once and you would never see it again, these motherfuckers actually ran this back again the next year, but only this time with the WWE title on the line. And hey, this match was pretty good. It had its moments where it was slow, but I still enjoyed it regardless. But that next match they had the following year, the twice in a lifetime bullshit, I could have done without that. But It is what it is. It happened. It doesn't take away from how good this one was and how good my experience was going to this WrestleMania. So yeah, not enough good things I could say about it. So yes, that was WrestleMania 28. I would rate it a B. If I had to give it a grade, I would rate it a B. The Undertaker and Triple H match was incredible. In my opinion, the match of the night. The CM Punk and Jericho Championship match was also very good. And the Rock and John Cena match was also good too. It was a big spectacle. It really felt like a big time match. It felt like a big main event, and it delivered in that sense. So yeah, that was WrestleMania 28, and we have WrestleMania 42 coming up in just 2 weeks from Las Vegas. And guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode, this special monthly edition of Wrestling Review Rewind. Hopefully, by the next time we do this kind of episode, my podcast partner John Daniel will be back. But until then, your asses are stuck with me and Razor Ramon too. So yes, guys, follow us on our social media pages, our Facebook, our Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube page, our Spotify, our Spreaker, leave comments, like, subscribe, let us know what you think. We'd love to talk to you guys about these topics and debate with you about them in a healthy way, keyword healthy way. So yes, until next time, this is Konscious Kurt with another edition of Clash of Champions. Take care, God bless, and remember, don't be an asshole and a douchebag in real life or social media, because that toxic bullshit is for the birds. And Nicki Minaj too. Peace.